appeal of ladies Senator David Mark.
Relax.
In part, the order made by the Court of Appeal that status quo antebellum be restored had been set aside. In other words, the basis upon which INEC acted to remove the name of Senator Mark and his escort had been removed by the Supreme Court, agreed that the order of status quo antebellum made by the Court of Appeal was unwarranted, had no basis to make it, it was unnecessary. But affirmed that we should go to raise the question of jurisdiction before the trial court. The appeal, in other words, the Supreme Court allowed the appeal. The objection to the competence of the appeal was dismissed. The appeal was valid, but they agreed that we ought not to have come to the Court of Appeal for the question to come and show cause. And so we're going back to the court.
How do you react to that? What you hear your pronouncement? How do you feel?
In my view, that's it. The Supreme Court is a court of policy, and like you hear the leadership say, they are Nigerians, they are aware of what is going on. Democracy must flourish, and it must thrive.
So finally, what's the state of the matter at the Federal High Court? Where are we at the Federal High Court?
When we get there, I'll answer you.
So my friends, you have heard the outcome of the Supreme Court's judgment from J.S. Okutepa SAN, the Learned Silk and counsel to the African Democratic Congress and Senator David Mark. He has just given a summary of what happened today at the Supreme Court, and I'm here to actually clarify this issue and explain it to you in the very simplest and easiest way so that we can understand, because as you can see, a lot of Nigerians are so excited. Everyone is jubilating about this victory. You know, looking at the excitement in well-meaning Nigerians, I can imagine what would happen if the 2027 election turns out to be free and fair, with the choice of the people winning as should be, to be a glorious day. Now let me explain what the Learned Silk J.S. Okutepa in the video I just showed you said, and I'll try as much as possible to say it in the very simplest of terms. But first, I want to point out that the battle is not over yet. Yes, the battle is not over yet, because the Supreme Court referred all the parties back to the Federal High Court, which is the trial court and the very first court that this matter was brought to. Now, I'll start with the victory of the African Democratic Congress and Senator David Mark. The Supreme Court actually allowed the appeal of Senator David Mark. When a court allows appeal, it means that the appeal is competent. It means that the court has seen that the appeal is valid and should actually come before it, which is what happened in this instance. The Supreme Court allowed the appeal and then actually set aside the objection of the other party, Honorable Nafiu Bala. He set aside his application and objection to the fact that the appeal is incompetent. Now, the Supreme Court further ordered that the decision of the Court of Appeal to say that parties should maintain status quo antebellum. Status quo antebellum means that parties should remain the way they were. Remember that the reason why this appeal came up was because there was a change in the leadership of the ADC, and the opposing party, which is Honorable Nafiu Bala and his camp, and the people in his camp got angry and went to the Federal High Court. Now, afterwards, their application was appealed at the Court of Appeal, and then the Court of Appeal said that all the parties should remain the way they are, like the transition and the new leadership of ADC that is already Senator David Mark should not be. The old leadership should still continue until the matter is decided at the Federal High Court. Now, the Supreme Court is saying that that decision of the Court of Appeal should be overruled. That it should be set aside. In fact, the Supreme Court set aside that decision and everything that went with it. The Supreme Court set it aside together with every other thing, meaning that the Supreme Court invariably upheld the leadership of David Mark and his new ESCOs. The Supreme Court upheld their leadership and set aside the order of the Court of Appeal on the basis that it was incompetent. And now remember that the reason why INEC failed to recognize ADC was because of the decision of the Court of Appeal that says that parties should remain the way they are. So since the Supreme Court has set aside that decision and rendered it incompetent, it invariably means that the foundation upon which INEC decided that ADC should be removed and failed to recognize Senator David Mark has also been removed, meaning that the action of INEC has indirectly been declared as invalid and have been set aside by this decision today of the Supreme Court. Now, this is where it gets really tricky. The Supreme Court now referred all the parties back to the trial court. The trial court is the Federal High Court. It is at that trial court that the issue of jurisdiction will be dealt with, and all the other pending issues, the issue to show cause why these people should not be the leaders or the should not lead ADC would also be discussed. Furthermore, the Supreme Court also rendered the Convention of March, the ADC Convention of March, invalid and null and void, meaning that all the other decisions and every appointment that was made in that convention remains null and void, meaning that ADC, after the decision at the trial court or whenever they are permitted, can need to do another convention and to revalidate whatever that happened. This is actually the decision so far of the Supreme Court, and I would also urge us to not to relent and not to relax. Yes, the victory is in part, but the full victory will be when the decision of the trial court comes up, when we hear the decision or when the trial commences and there is final decision from the trial court and it is in favor of ADC. That is when we have complete victory. I hope you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe, encourage us, give us a thumbs up. Thank you very much for having me, and enjoy the rest of your day.